I have to remind myself to start recording, otherwise I always forget. All right, can everyone hear me all right online?
I can hear you.
Hear me okay? Good. Okay, those who are online, again, I'm happy for you. If you have a question, just to go ahead and unmic and interrupt me, and/or I'm watching the meeting chat. So if you have a question, you can throw it in the meeting chat. First of all, just any housekeeping items. I know that there's been a couple of people having issues submitting chapters. Anyone having issues submitting their assignments? Let's see. If you are, please feel free to contact me. I'm not a student, so I can't see exactly. At the end of each chapter, there's a button, right, to submit to Canvas. Make sure that you click that button. Okay. If you have any issue, that's fine. You just ping the TA, ping myself. We can fix the grades in Canvas. Let's not get too stressed about it. I'd love it if everyone was able to properly submit, because then again, everything is auto graded. Late penalties are automatically applied. I'm being really lenient on the first week with late penalties, so if you get slammed, let me know. I'm going to sort of waive them the first week or so. Of course, we're in the second week now, so there's a few people that are trying to catch up and that have just joined the class. And the class keeps getting bigger. I think between this section and the other section, we have like 50 people now. So, any questions at all that you'd like to cover today? Any topics that you particularly would like to cover from chapter 2? Again, feel free to throw things in the chat if you have any issues. Okay, good. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, about 8 people in class today. That's not bad. All right. Archive is always a little bit of a pain for a few people. You'll get it worked out. So make sure you check into archive, by the way. Excellent. Okay, so first of all, I want to just do a little bit of a high level view. We're going to go on the whiteboard here for a minute. Okay, so those of you, hopefully you can all see the whiteboard. Okay. Little high level stuff first. Okay. Let me make sure I don't move too quickly. Some of you have never really done HTML before. You don't understand how an HTML request works. You go in the browser and you go to web pages and hey, it's magic. Okay, but how does that all happen? Okay, so I've got a web browser. Okay, well, I've got a page that's displaying. Okay, and that has a URL, which might be. Okay, we start with HTTP:. Okay, what's HTTP:? What does it mean? What is it signifying? Hypertext transfer protocol, signifying the protocol of the request that you're going to try to make. Okay, so you do HTTP:/, and then I do CNN.com. Okay. So this basically says, well, this is the page that I want to load. CNN.com. Okay. Oh, sorry, // sorry. CNN.com. All right, how do I find CNN.com? How does the browser find it? How does it know where to go?
Talk to the web server.
Well, there's a web server out here. Okay, yes, that's the next thing I was going to draw. Okay, my web server. Okay.
Or the DNS.
Now my web server is DNS. Thank you. Okay, my web server has an IP address of some sort. Every resource on the internet has an IP address. I'm just going to say, you know, 155.10.100.50, some sort of a IP address there. So somehow the browser needs to go and find this IP address and make a request to this web server, an HTTP request to that web server. So the first thing it does is, as you mentioned, it refers, okay, it goes to the domain name service, DNS. Okay. Now I'm sitting at home on my web browser, right, and I'm connected through xfinity.com. Right. Xfinity, basically when you set up your internet, right, you have to set up what your domain name servers are. Okay, and usually those will be from your provider. Right? Let's say Xfinity gives me a DNS address, same thing, you know, whatever the address is, 100. Blah, 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 okay. It's going to give me an IP address that is actually in my settings. In fact, that's probably just, I'll show you that in a second. Okay. You want to go into your Windows machine and you go into a command prompt, you can say ipconfig. In a Windows prompt. Maybe I'll show you that in a second. And you can see all your internet settings, your DNS mappings, things like that. Okay. But the browser is going to go out to the DNS and it's going to ask, all right, where is CNN.com? Okay. And in the DNS, there's going to be a mapping that says CNN.com is as this IP address. And also note that, I mean, we live in a whole world, right? And so anyone in the whole world over here in India can type the same thing. Okay? They got a browser, and then someone over here in America is also trying to access that site. Now, and CNN.com might be, you know, same thing in America. Okay? So let's say here's CNN, their server. Here's me. Okay. Here's I don't know, Abdul. Okay. Across the internet. Now, how do you think that I can actually access this website efficiently, and he can access this website efficiently, even though CNN.com is halfway across the world, across multiple hops on the internet? How many DNS servers do you think there are? Is it just one? What do you think? There's a whole network of DNS servers across the world. Okay. Okay. Whole network of DNS servers, and they all replicate with each other. Okay. Meaning they copy the information. So let's say I'm in India and I want to register a domain, right? I'm going to register a domain name, and it's going to go, same thing. It's going to go onto the DNS for my GoDaddy or whatever, India. And then GoDaddy India is going to, their DNS server is going to replicate with these master DNS servers, which then replicate and copy the information across all the internet. Okay. So if I register a domain name, professorjenson.com, okay, it might take a few minutes, but in a few minutes, that domain, that name and that mapping to my IP address will be on every DNS server in the world. There's another thing out there which is really cool. Okay, so this is just for the names. Okay, the DNS. Actually, let's walk through the rest. I'll talk about CDN in just a second. Who knows what a CDN is? Anyone? Everyone knows CDN? Okay, I'll explain that in a second too. Okay. So the browser, you type in that, it goes to the DNS, which looks up where that is, okay? And then the browser makes an HTTP request to this IP address. So the web server, he's sitting out here, and usually most web servers out there run a software called Apache. Okay? Not all, but a lot of your servers are out there. They run a Linux operating system, and they run Apache web server. The Apache web server has the ability to listen. Okay, so it's going to listen on a port. Okay, have you taken computer architecture class? You know about ports. Okay, all right. What port does the web listen on? 80. Thank you. Okay, listen on port 80. Okay. Talk about SSL in a bit, but basically, general web's going to go on port 80. Okay. Now, with HTTP and on the web, I could do :80. Okay. Because that's how you specify what port. But you don't have to. It's the default, so you don't have to specify. So the Apache server's in here listening on port 80. This request comes through on port 80, and it says CNN.com. Okay. Okay. Apache server has some configuration, which I'm not going to make you learn. Which he can say, oh, CNN.com on my server. So there might be 100 websites on one server. Right? We don't have, there's not one website per server. Apache has a directory probably called World Wide Web, and underneath there's probably a directory that's called CNN. Underneath there, there might be, whatever, abc.com. Okay, so the multiple websites can be sitting on that one server, and inside the www.cnn, there's going to be an index.html. So we name the root web page for your website index.html for a reason, because by default, okay, I can just say cnn.com. I don't have to say /index.html, because by default, the web page, so it's port 80 and index.html are the defaults. And so you don't have to specify it at all, but you could. Okay. So there'll be an index.html for CNN, there'll be index.html for abc.com, whatever. Okay. So the web server will say, okay, I got a request on port 80 for I'm going to take this index.html page, and I'm going to put the contents of that in the response. Okay, so I've got a request, and then I got a response back here with index.html. Can everyone can see the board all right online? You can see it on writing and everything?
I can't.
You can? Okay.
No, I think it's just the internet connection.
I know I'm not the best driver. Okay, so yes, that's your basic request. Put a name in, look it up. Web server listens on a port, determines where CNN.com is on its local file system, goes and grabs that index.html, stuffs it in a response, okay, and passes it back to the browser. Now, it also, in the response, there's a response code. Okay, 200 means what? Anyone know what a response code 200 means in HTTP? It means everything is good. Okay, the request was successful. Okay. What if someone goes in here and I say CNN.com and I say, blah.html? Okay. And blah.html does not exist. Anyone know the code that happened that comes back? 404. Okay, so again, the browser is going to give certain codes. 200 says, hey, we're good. 404 says, couldn't find it. All right. Talk about caching for a second. Okay, you guys all know that there's a browser cache, right? What's a cache? It's a cache.
It holds information so that it doesn't have to go back and unzip data or
Yeah.
database.
Yeah, I mean, if we had to go back and get, here's the thing, most of the web is static web pages that don't change very often. Okay? And since they don't change very often, I don't want to go back and get it every time I make that request. So tomorrow when I go to CNN.com, I don't want to go back and get the index.html page again. Well, I may because it might be updated, okay, but it's actually just changed all the time. But if it were a static web page, you know, my resume or something, okay, there's no reason for me to go back and get that page or any of its resources. Just note also, on CNN.com, I'm going to go ahead and I might have, you know, images, you know, my profile.jpg. Okay, so an HTML file, as you know, can have images, okay, associated with it. It can have style sheets. It can have JavaScript files. So I might have my app.js, and I might have my main.css file. Okay. And again, index.html loads. The browser starts to render index.html. Okay. And just remember, so it actually renders it top down. It starts rendering the page. So there's some text there. Oh, it encounters a tag, an img, image tag. Okay. The image source equal profile.jpg. Okay. We'll look at image tags in detail. I'm going to go through some code today earlier. So then it uses, oh, I need that image. Where is it? Oh, I don't have it. So it's going to make another HTTP request. Okay. In the background, right, to go grab that profile.jpg. Okay. So I got a couple. Oh, so I got some people online who are having a hard time seeing my when I'm drawing. Well, okay. Do your best. I'm gonna demonstrate all these things in code in just a minute, but from a high level standpoint, you see, understand that how that browser makes a request, and then how it gets cached. So it encounters an image and then it decides, oh, I need to go back to the server and grab that image. Same thing, makes a request, gets a response, and then it renders the image. Then it continues, and it might find another image, and it needs to go make another request, and go grab, or it might have it include for a CSS file, goes and grabs it, okay? Then it's going to stuff it right here in its file.jpg. I draw terribly too, so it wouldn't, it's a double whammy, all right? But I've got a cache. It's got my profile JPEG and my index.html in there. So the next day when I go back and I hit CNN.com, these are going to, if they haven't changed, these are going to just come out of my browser cache, so it's super duper fast. They're going to load right up. Okay. Some of the things that you can control as a web developer is how long these last before they expire. Okay. So normally what you do is you basically set an expires for a long time in the future, because you want things to cache by default, and then you try to control things that you don't really want to cache. For example, I mean, I do want to cache my JavaScript, but if I make an update to my code, and I put it out on the server, I want every browser to be able to pull that, right? Because JavaScript is kind of important. And so again, there's ways to organize your code and configure your server so that when the JavaScript changes, it gets pulled to the server. Not going to go deep down on that right now. The last thing I want to talk was about CDN. Okay. I think you covered this in the chapter, correct? I believe you have. That's a content delivery network. Okay. So maybe you can say, I'm going to go CDN. It's going to be content delivery network. Okay, so CDN. What that is, real quick, is it's like a global cache. Okay, so you have your browser cache, but again, let's say I'm in California and someone else is in India, all right, and they're trying to access the website. For one person, depending on where the server is, it's going to be a lot of latency, and it's going to take a long, it may take a long time for all those requests to go. I might make 10 requests from my browser to get all those images and stuff, and those requests might all have latency, and so then the page might take 20 seconds to load, and by that time, everyone's, given up. Okay. So the powers that be, like DNS that replicates all over the world, they have CDN servers that are CDNs, content delivery network servers that are all over the network, all over the world. Okay? And so when I request index HTML, what happens actually is that request is going to go through my CDN. It's going to cache index HTML out here on this CDN, and then it's going to come to my browser, and I'm going to cache it locally.
What is the CDN again?
Content Delivery Network. What it allows you to do, again, is as I access the web, it's going to cache index HTML here on this server, and then it's going to replicate it all across the world. So it's like this worldwide cache of information, so that the guy in India, when he goes to access it, he only does one hop to the nearest CDN and gets the data. I go one hop to the nearest CDN and get the data, instead of going 10 hops to the web server, right? That's it. So it's a distributed cache, okay, that allows, again, the whole web to be efficient. Okay. Any questions on this? This is just I like to give sort of high level stuff so people understand sort of how it all fits together. Any questions? Is it clear, kind of how the cache and the DNS work together? There's a lot to do. What happens on a web server? A web server context is important again for your applications. That's why we use Live Server on Visual Studio Code, because that actually creates a web server, okay, on your local machine, so that the request can go through properly. As I said before, you don't ever really want to double click on the HTML, index HTML file and just open it in the browser from the file system. You can, but I always recommend that you open and use web pages in the context of a web server. All right, any questions at all? You feel free to throw them in the chat if you have any questions online. Yoke. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to go hop into some code. Let's see. First thing I wanted to show you is maybe you all haven't seen in the pages in our 2550, there's HTML resources. I think I went through this a little bit, but these are just some good tools that you can learn. And I'm just going to show you the one that I recommend. W3 schools. Okay. So if there's something that Zybooks is not explaining well, or you want to dive down and dig in and sort of understand things a little bit better, okay, you can certainly ask your peers, and I recommend that you guys get active on Discord and on the team. Just throw questions out, okay? If you have questions for your peers to answer, a lot of times your peers can answer your questions. The TA or myself can also answer questions. We're also monitoring online. But especially with this kind of class, it's beginning, you know, I am trying to teach at the most basic level that I can. I've done web development for 30 years, and so sometimes, you know, I miss some of the things that you miss. And so, like, I don't realize that you don't have a clue about a certain thing or another. Okay, so I recommend that you, again, ask lots of questions. When you get if you become a web developer, you know, or developer of any sort, has anyone got an industry job? Anyone did a programming job anywhere? Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, when you're coding, the first thing you do is, what's that call? I don't know. You're going to Google it. Half my brain is Google. I wouldn't have been able to program the last 15 years if I didn't have Google. As I get old and forget everything, I'm always having to remind myself. And so there's great resources on the web. Stack Overflow. Yeah. Now, of course, you can also get lots of code on the internet, and you can just copy and paste it, and Bob's your uncle, right? I don't recommend that you copy and paste. Remember, Control-C means what? Control-cheat. Okay. But you can refer. You can go, look, so first thing I do on HTML is I come to W3 Schools right here. And it's got everything. So what this is it has CSS, JavaScript. So these three tabs right here, you could, if you want to on your own, I recommend you do. I'm not going to force you to. Just go through all these, okay? And for example, you look at HTML elements. So I'm going to do one. Okay, look. So we talk about HTML, H1 and P and BR, and you kind of probably know what all those are at this point. Nested HTML elements. Oh, HTML elements can be nested. Okay. Right? So I've got a body tag and I've got H1 and a P tag inside the body. Try it for yourself. And this is where it's really powerful because it just brings you into a little editor and you can actually just write code, okay, inline. So again, you can look at their example and play around with it, but you can also this is an inline code editor. You can just go ahead and play around. You have questions, right? And so let's go back. Right? And we get, we go through CSS, we go through images, tables, okay? Tables, for example, which is one of the tags that you're learning about. Okay, I have an example here. Okay. I got a basic table. And I'll go ahead and just dive in. We'll explain tables a little bit. I'm going to go try it yourself. And let's go look and see what we got here. And you guys can follow along with what I'm doing yourselves. But it gives me this basic code for a table. So let's walk through this real quick. So I just have my HTML tag, right? Head, style. Okay. I think you'll learn about this in chapter 2. Have you finished chapter 2 today? Right? That's the plan? Okay, good. So a style tag inline is always in the head. Okay, remember? HTML is a head style. And I can actually put inline CSS here. So I got table. I got my font family, Arial, sans serif. Do you guys know what this means when I put Arial, sans serif? What that means is my font family, I want Arial, which is basically a non-serif font. Okay, Times Roman serif, it has all the squigglies and everything. Arial is a very basic font, block font that, and so I say Arial, sans serif. So if the browser has Arial, it'll display it. Otherwise, it'll display any sans serif font. Okay, width is 100%. I want my table to expand the width of the entire page. Okay, I don't want about that one. So then I have, let's see, I got some. So let's go look at the HTML first. Then we'll talk about how we're going to style it. Okay, HTML table tag. Okay? I have TR, which means table row, and /TR. So every tag, HTML tag course has a closing tag. Some tags are self-closing, like what? What's a self-closing tag? Name one.
Image.
Image, okay, yep, self-closing tag.
Isn't it technically a void tag though?
A what?
A void tag?
I don't use that terminology, void tag, myself. But, BR is sort of the classic empty one. BR just means give me a new line. Okay, you say BR slash. Okay, but here, so I've got TR and I got TH. What does that stand for? Table header. Okay. So I've got so the first row is usually the header. You don't have to have a header. Okay, you can exclude that. If I say TH, okay, what I'm saying is I want a header, and of course the header by default. Oh, and just so you know, every browser styles each element a certain way. Okay? And they try to make it consistent across all browsers. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll call this the default style sheet. It's not included in your web page. It's just the default. An H1 tag is 14 pixel bold. I mean there's certain default styles that we get in the browser. Okay, and so the browser also knows that if I got 3 THs here, then look, I've got well, I'm actually probably styling this using CSS tags. So we'll look at that in a second. But I've got company, contact, country. Okay. And then I've got TR, TD, TD, TD. Alfred, Maria, and Germany. So they're from company, contact, and country. So column 1 here corresponds to column 1 company. Column 2 Maria corresponds to column 2 contact. Okay, and so on. Okay, so I have 3 columns in this table. Okay, I can have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, however many I want. Okay. So let's see here. Now I'm going to, and basically I just have all those rows. I say /tr/table. Boom, that's my table. I want it to look nice, and so what I'll do is I'll just come up here and I'll say TDTH. Okay. Okay, and I've got a border. Let's see, 1px solid. Let's see, what color is that? It's not going to show me the color. D. Text align is left. Okay, so there's a. So there's a 1 pixel border, by the way, that you can see here. That's what that's showing, and we're not able to see it along the edge of this gray, but there's a 1 pixel border around each of these cells. Okay. Text align left, I mean I want everything to go left, or I can text line right if I want everything to right align. And padding 8 pixels. Padding is something we need to talk about real quick. Padding is the internal padding around this text. Let's just go ahead and change it to 1 pixel and run it, and you'll see that it's all squished. Okay. So we definitely want padding in there. So we're going to go ahead and put that padding back to 8 pixels. Okay. Run. All right. Again, I can do text align, and you can just in here right. Okay. Oh, everything's aligned right. Okay. Back to left. Oops, not going to say that. Okay. And you're going to learn more about selectors in the future. But I'll just show you this one, sort of tell you what it kind of is doing here. TR, this is a CSS tag selector. We call them selectors. Okay. So in this case, this selector here is TD, TH. This means any TD tag and any TH tag I want to style in a certain way. Okay. This one says, and this is kind of a slick thing, every TR, table row, which is the row that holds these 3 TDs, I can do colon nth child. This is a pseudo selector, they call it, even. And that says, so every even row, which is 2, 4, and 6, Okay. I want to give a gray background color. Any questions so far? Okay, so that's tables. All right, let's go back in. And again, I just recommend this site. I recommend you kind of go hang out on here and just go through and, again, fill in your knowledge. Okay, if you have questions, let's go back to HTML. While I'm here, and it's really easy, I'm just going to show you another really important thing that you need to learn at in HTML, and it's lists. So let's just go over here. And again, I've got a little code box here. So I've got an H2, which is a second level heading. So you H1, H2, H3, H4. H1 is going to be bigger. H2 is going to be a little smaller. So it's basically just a set of headings, default headings that you can use. Okay, so I have an unordered HTML list. Let's say I made that in H1. I'll just show you what that is and run that. It's bigger, okay, as you might expect. Let's make this an H3. Okay. Let's run that, a little smaller. Okay. A UL is an unordered list, meaning you get bullet points instead of numbers. An OL is an ordered list, meaning you get numbers. Okay. It's ordered. Pardon me. Let's see here. Oh, I'll show you something else. Let's see. Any questions on this? Okay. Basic lists. Do I have my tables again? I got my tables here still. I want to show you one more thing on tables. Attributes of tables that you can use, which are nice, are something like this. Let's do TH. I'm going to say call span equal to okay, so what I've done here is that this still is a 3-column table, but for this particular column, I wanted it to span 2 columns. Okay. So you can say TH call span equal to. Okay. Call span is what we call an attribute. So we have elements and they have attributes, which allow you to change the nature of them. Okay, so I say call span. So I want this to span 2 columns. Okay. Let's see here. I mean, you can, this is just I can also do row span. Show you this one. Okay, I'll just take that out from that. Okay, so now Alfred Futterkist, okay, is taking up both of these rows. All right, everyone else has only one row. Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to go through that real quick. We use tables quite a bit. In the past, we used to use tables way too much. Like every time you wanted to lay something out, you would use a table. You want a form, you'd use a table, right? You wanted just anything. And so I warn against overuse of tables, but if you're building a table for display, okay, feel free to use tables. Tables are nice. You can actually stick stuff inside a cell. You can format it. You can do a lot of really complex layout using tables. I would just say that there's a lot better ways to lay out, which we're going to teach you, like Flexbox, CSS Grid, as opposed to using tables for layout. So I sort of warn against that. All right, any questions so far? I've got. Okay, Jaden said he's finished chapter 2. Excellent. Okay, so you feel free to work ahead if you'd like. I don't mind. You want to go through the whole 8 chapters ahead of everybody else, you're welcome to do that. All right. Let's see here. So W3 Schools. Great site, great for playing around, great for trying to understand concepts that you don't quite aren't quite grasping. All right. Okay, in chapter 2, you had a banned web page. Okay. And so I've got this folder that I created. Okay, so and you can just you can grab the code from the Xylabs if you want, throw it into an index page of your own, so you have that source code. Okay, and all I did was I went down here and I into my source folder here. Oops, where's my source folder? Sorry, source 2550 module HTML banned web page. I just created a folder banned web page. Okay, I opened this up in Visual Studio Code, just empty, and then I clicked on this plus here, new file, and I created index HTML, and I just pasted that code from Zybooks so I could play around with it. Okay. So let's look at this. This web page has quite a bit of stuff we can actually look at and review. Okay. Again, these are things that you learn. You know, meta, char set, UTF-8. That's just telling the browser what character set you're using. Okay. If I were in China and I was displaying Chinese characters, I would be displaying a wholly different character set. Okay. All right. Let's go in here. Let's look at this web page real quick. I'm going to stop that real quick. Okay, so I'm going to either right click, open with live server. Hope you all got live server. Everyone has live server sorted out, right? Okay, you got 20 points for that, so I hope you have. All right, so here is the banned web page. This web page has no CSS. It's just HTML tags and just sort of, again, the basic browser styling that the browsers do for web pages. So, for example, your basic styling. See these links here: members, concert, contact. Right. The browser, if it's an A tag, it automatically puts an underline there. Automatically puts a blue link there. If you, well, actually blue. Let's see. If I click members, let's go back up now. Now I've actually navigated it, so now it's a different style. Okay, so just let's go back here. Member and Raphael, you were wondering about the links. Were you wondering about the links, or what was your sort of specific question on this page?
It goes going about the IDs.
IDs. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go in there. We'll talk about those real quick. Okay. Let's go back to banned web page. Okay, so it's made up of a p tag. Again, p tag, just you can use this as a generic sort of container that contains other things like links, and it will just put a new line at the bottom. Okay. A tags, links. Okay. It's A and then href. Okay. And there's a couple things we can do here. I'm gonna show you a few different ones. I'm gonna just show you an A tag here, A, href. Just to go back to our previous example, okay? CNN.com. Well, if I said CNN, if I http://CNN.com, okay? So this is an external link, okay? So if I want to follow that link, it'll take me to CNN.com. Now, let's go ahead and save that and go back to our web page. I have CNN. When I click on CNN, it navigates me away from my current page to CNN.com. Okay. Maybe that's what I wanted, but usually as a web developer, you don't want to navigate people away from your page. Okay. So how do I keep people does anyone know how to keep people from navigating away from the page? Okay, that's one way. But let me give you exactly a way to make it open a tab or, okay, instead of actually,
Be target blank, right?
thank you very much, sir. Okay, target equal underscore blank. Okay. Remember the underscore. Okay. So now if I save that and I go back to my page, my page is gone. Reloaded. Okay, good. Now you see that it opened a new tab and my original page is still here. Okay. So that's target equal blank, a very handy thing to learn. Okay. You see here they have ampersand NBSP. What is that, folks?
New blank space.
A non-breaking space, they call it, NBSP. Okay. That's because, let's just, in HTML, you may get confused by this. Let's go ahead and just, let's go ahead and do this. Let's put two links together like this. Okay. And I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spaces. What's going to happen to those spaces? It's going to ignore all but one. Okay, save that, go back. Oh, I've only got one space. Okay. Darn it. All right. And so if I wanted more than one space, I could just use these entity, we call entity tags, and do 3, 4. Okay. That. Now I've got 4 spaces. Okay. Now if I put this on the next line, okay, it ignores new lines. Okay. You can't just say enter and it will actually show up on your web page. What would I do to add a new line there? Talked about the tag a few minutes ago.
Get out of
Yes, sir.
break.
Yeah, break, BR. Okay, so I'm going to just throw a BR tag in here. BR. And you don't need to put a slash. I'm just in a habit of doing that. That's just the way I always did it. But I guess you're not supposed to anymore. It works. Okay. Now I've got a new line after concerts. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Let's go down here, and you'll see that they're actually starting to use some, what's section? Someone explain to me what a section tag is.
So the ID attribute, at least I understand, you can later.
I'm going to talk about IDs in a second, but what's a section tag? You feel free to blurt it out online. Open up. I've asked the question, or throw it in the chat. And I wouldn't expect necessarily everyone to know this yet because you're going to learn that in a future chapter. Okay, chapter 3. But here we're employing. So, do you know what a div is? Div tag. You guys on Teams, I'm just going to show you real quick. You can switch over to the view of the board. You know how to do that? I hope you do. All right. So a div is just is generic. We call it. I'm going to say it's generic block.
You're muted.
Hey, Professor, I think you muted yourself.
Oh, wow. Have I been muted for a while?
Only like 30 seconds, maybe.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. So what I was saying, folks, online then, I'll repeat this. First of all, you can switch over to your view of the board. You guys know how to switch views, I hope. I was explaining that a div tag, is a generic block tag. And block tags, again, always take up all the space in the row. They push everything down underneath it. They also have a width and a height, okay? So 100% of horizontal space, you can give them a width and you can give them a height. Okay? So again, I can say something like div width. No, I'll probably do my style. That's what we had. I can say div style equals style is an attribute of div, and then I could say width colon 100 px. Okay, they'll have some sort of content in there. It's called an inline style, okay, which will, again, you'll learn more about as we get into CSS. But it's an attribute style. I can add, these are like CSS rules. They look just like CSS rules, width, colon, 100 pixels. You want to add more, just do a semicolon, add some more, okay? But they can have a width and a height. And there's a bunch more of these. Okay? Let's see. Main section, detail, footer, header, article, and there's a bunch. Now, they're essentially all identical from a functional standpoint. Okay? The only reason we have these different names, why would we have all these different names? What?
The browsers.
Browser? Well, I mean, would it help me as a programmer to kind of organize my code and look at my code? And if I look at someone else's code and they have div, I need to sort of figure out that it's a header. I need to figure out that it's the footer. Why? Because it's at the bottom. Okay. But if you just code, if I'm doing my footer, I'm going to do footer. I'm doing a header. I'm doing I just enclose it in a header tag. Okay. If I'm listing a bunch of articles with links, I can use an article tag. I might have a list of articles. Okay. I like to enclose my entire web page in a main tag because it's my main content. Okay. Little sections, again, you might just have, it's another sort of thing. I might have my main content, and I might have a section. Well, I might have my header, then I might have a section on this, and a section on that, and a section on this topic, and then my footer at the bottom. Okay. So again, these allow us. These are called semantic tags because they really just have a meaning, a semantic meaning, right? They don't really, but they all do the same thing. They're all just block elements. Okay. Questions on that? All right. I'm sort of jumping over and digressing a little bit, but while we're here, I'm going to talk about another really handy element. It's called span. Anyone know what a span is? What's a span? Inline, thank you. There's an inline element. Okay, what are other inline elements? Anyone? Inline elements are, let's say I've got hello world. and then I just want to enclose it in I, or I could use cite, which is sort of the new way to do I, okay? Which just means italic, and cite is a newer, better way, okay?
So
But preferred
the text is bounded by tags
Right.
element.
Slash I, slash cite. So here you see, I want to make this text italic. An I tag doesn't have its own width, height, right? It can't have, it's in line, right? It's just wrapping an element in line. It's not creating a new line. It's not taking up space. It can't have width and height. I tag does not have, inline tags do not have width and height. But they just affect the text that they're wrapping in this case, okay? What are some other ones? B for bold, which they now say that we should use strong. Okay? So strong is the preferred one for bold, cite is the preferred one for I. Okay? But span itself is generic. Okay? Meaning, I can just wrap this text right here. Let's say I got span. Okay, so I can just wrap hello world in span, but it's not going to do anything because it's generic, it has no style. But I can then give style to that in my CSS. Okay. And let's say, we'll talk about IDs for a second. So, as we've been talking about attributes a little bit, you've seen ID. Well, I'll just put here, ID equal span 1, okay? I can give this idea, this span an ID, and then in the CSS, I can do something like this. I could do pound span 1, create a CSS rule and say color red. Okay. Again, moving ahead on CSS a little bit, but in CSS, if I put a pound sign that says this is something with the ID span 1. So this specifically refers to this one and only span. IDs, just so you know, on a web page, can you have the same ID more than once? 9, okay? No, you cannot, okay? IDs are unique on the page, okay? And so in this case, I'm saying pound span 1, color red, meaning for this particular span, this hello world is going to be a red color text. So IDs, again, allow me to target certain elements specifically. Every element doesn't have to have an ID. Okay. And remember, so let's see. What if I wanted to just add a style, for example, to a bunch of different spans? Remember, what attribute might I use on the element? What's something that allows me to apply the same thing? What's that? Class, thank you. So I could say ID equals span 1, or I could say class equal red text. Okay. So I'm going to apply red text to a bunch of different things. So I don't want to, I'm not going to do inline. I want a convenient way to do that. So what I do is I just add class equal red text to span, and then in my CSS, okay, I'll just go ahead and put a comma here, meaning I want span 1 or dot red text. This is saying is for either span 1 or anything with the class red text, I want the text color to be red. Okay, so remember inline elements. Inline elements do not have height and width. These are all the good test questions, guys, so take notes. Do not have height and width. Okay? And they all, and again, they're meant to wrap other elements or text. Let's see, any questions on that? And there's more. There's inline block. There's a few other things that we'll talk about later. I'm going to confuse you with that now. All right. Back to the code. You can switch the window back. Okay. And I got onto all of that. How much time do we have? 15 minutes? Because we hit section. I'll try not to digress too strongly. All right. H2, image, source equal, and I've got https://. So this is an external resource off on the web somewhere. Browser's going to go out and grab that, cache it probably. Okay. What if I've got an image just right here in the same directory as my index.html, and I want to access that? It'd be something like this: img source equal profile.jpg, if that's the name. Okay. Image again is a self-closing tag. You don't need to have a slash image at the very end or like that. You just do image. But yeah, so what this, trying to understand this. So this is actually, if I say profile JPEG, it assumes that it's in the root of my application or this folder. Let's say I wanted to put images. I've just created an image folder. Okay. Try and grab an image from somewhere. Let's see. So let's go. Let's go over here. Sorry. Let's go grab an image. Where would be a good image? Labs. I bet you the JavaScript. Oh, there we go. Heart image. Let's grab that heart image right there. Copy it. Okay. I'm going to go over to my band web page folder. I'm going to paste that in there. Okay. So my index page is in the root. Okay. And again, when I open Visual Studio Code, always remember that you go to the folder, you right-click on the folder, and you open with code. That gives your website a root folder, and Visual Studio Code needs that. Live Server needs that. Okay. So now let's go back to my code. Okay. I now have an image in there. Yay, heart PNG. All right. How do I access heart PNG, folks? I'm in the root. How do I access it from the root?
You type img/heartpng.
So heart PNG. Okay. So I'm making what we call a relative path. Okay. Meaning, if I don't put a slash at the beginning, so I could also do slash. Let's do slash. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at my image here, my page. Where are you? Oh, boom! I got a heart image sitting there, right? Okay. Back to my page right here. Okay. I did slash. That worked. I do no slash. It also works. Okay. I recommend using relative paths on if you have something that's inside a JS directory or a CSS directory or image directory, you want to use relative paths. Okay? You could always use slash. So slash means go back to the root. Okay? Let's see here. So that's that on images. Let's go here. We have a UL. We just talked about those. I've got an inline tag here called strong, which makes that bold. Again, more image tags. That's the first section. Okay. So this programmer just said, hey, I'm gonna take my upper portion, members portion, I'm gonna give it a section with an ID, okay? Oh, let's go back to the ID real quick. So now I have ID members, section ID. So this gives it a unique ID I can use later. And I have section ID equal concerts. Again, unique ID for that section. And section ID equal contact, okay? And so we're going back to these links here. Links are also kind of very similar. So for example, I could do either a different page, profile.html, or maybe I've got it in some sort of a subdirectory. But again, I can make this is a link to an HTML page on my website. Okay, so that means if I have a profile.html page, which doesn't have anything in it at the moment, but I could redirect the browser to profile.html. What's going on here? So you saw earlier, this pound sign in CSS refers to an ID. It's sort of the same thing here. So if I say href equal pound members, what's going to happen in the browser is, I'll go back to the page here. Thank you. I click on members, it jumps down to, it scrolls down, and members is the top there. Okay. If I click on contact, okay, it scrolled down to make contact visible, but there was nothing below contact, so it didn't scroll it up to the top. Just in case some of you are wondering why the first one went all the way up to the top. Concerts would be the same thing. I go up here, I click on concerts, it scrolls to concerts, so it's visible. But again, there's not enough content below it to actually scroll it up to the top. The very first link, of course, members, just takes us there, and it's at the top. Okay, just so make it visible. So basically, it scrolls down within your current page. Okay. All right. Any questions at all? You can throw them in the chat window. I'm looking at the chat window. Also, feel free, again, just to blur it out. Is this pretty straightforward? HTML? Again, I like to still hit it on a base level because some of you will be way ahead, okay? But so I don't want to leave people behind, okay? So, say if you're advanced in this class, feel free to just go ahead, move along, move ahead of everyone, okay? Don't be too much of a know-it-all in class, but I do love your. I shouldn't say that. Sorry. I want everyone to make comments in class, but don't be the only one to make a comment every time, all right? Because you can. Because I know I've had people in the industry in my Web 1 class, which someone didn't test out or whatever, and they sit here bored and sometimes. And so I actually had them. One time I had an industry guy do a project for one of my clients for Web 1, but I'm not sure how kosher that was, but he got paid. He got paid. Okay, so let's see here. We've got ULs, images, sections. We talked about tables, table headers. We talked about call span. Let's see, anything else we want to talk about? Same thing, we got target blank here, right? Which is what we taught you before. Again, if I were you, if I'm doing Zybooks, I would grab that code, stuff it in a web page just like I did, play around with it, and sort of keep it for reference. All right, let's go do something else real quick. We got 10 minutes.
We were supposed to do the lab and stuff, but it's
poem.
last class.
Did I do poem last class? I think I actually did, didn't I? Does anyone want to go through it again? Because I will, since anyone online want to go through poem again? Poem was pretty easy. We just threw in a couple of P tags, right? I mean, it was, and some BRs. I don't think we really need to go over that again. Because I kind of jumped the gun on that. Let's see, special characters, white space, we talked about that. I'm not going to do that. Okay, let's go. We can look at this one. All right, let me just. Another table one. Well, let's actually look at this real quick. This actually has some interesting stuff. This is the lab that I did not assign you. Okay, I'm assigning it to the Web 2 class, so I can use it for demo. Let's go live on this one. This is the lab photo gallery. Again, I've got a table here, which you just learned about. Each of those tables, so the first column has images, and I've got a little copyright at the bottom. Let's go look at the code, see how that's organized. Okey-doke. I got title photo gallery. This shows up, of course, on the name of the tab. Normally, I stick the title in what kind of tag? What tag do we usually have at the top here? Head. Okay. Normally, I stick it in there with other meta tags and such, but you don't have to. The browser is pretty flexible, put it that way. Okay. So I got my body, I got my table, and I've got caption. Okay, Red Rocks, Colorado. Okay, so caption is another sort of HTML element. We should go look at it in the browser in just a second. I got my header, photo, date, description, and I've got image tags, vacation one, JPEG. Okay. And on my image tag, I've got alt equal, amphitheater top row. What's the alt tag for? Let's say for some reason it can't load or can't find the image. You can still mouse over that, thing. It'll tell you what it should have been. Or if you mouse over the image, okay, is it going to give me the alt? No, that's only when there's a failure to load it. Let's go back here. And then width, 120 pixels. I didn't even have to say px there. If I say 120, it's pixels. Okay. And again, I can make that bigger if I want. But let's go to the browser real quick. Let's inspect this puppy. Okay. Has everyone been in the debugger and played around with it? Are you using it in the class? Tell me if you've gone in the inspector at all for any of the labs so far. Raise your hand. Okay, a couple of you. Okay, and you guys using the debugger at all online? Okay, I recommend that you get to know the debugger, and again, it tells you everything that's going on here. But also, if you have a problem, let's go back here. You can just go in, right? So I can go in and look at any element. So I can click the selector and I can select this image. I can see that its width is 120 pixels. Okay. Well, I don't know if it'll let me change this one. No, it won't. But I can change it here. I can double click on that. I can change it to 150. Boom. I now have a wider image. Okay. Again, really handy. Now, caption, I wanted to see what the defaults for caption were. Display table caption. It's actually, so notice here, look, user agent style sheet. As I select something, I'm looking in the styles tab. User agent style sheet is the default style sheet I was just telling you about. It's the browser default style sheet that, again, you don't necessarily see it, okay? But you can come in here and see that display is table caption and text align is WebKit center. Let me tell you about, but basically I want it to be centered. And so you see up here, the default browser user agent style sheet took that caption and centered it on the page. Okay. By default in the user agent style sheet, the table has border collapse and border spacing of 2 pixels. Okay, so this is something that's just ubiquitous across all browsers, okay? And it's usually the same. Okay, for most modern browsers. All right. A lot of questions today. You guys seem like you must be cruising along. What exactly does the meta tag do? Okay, thank you. Alonzo asked that question. What does the meta tag do? Let's go in here. To answer your question, the meta tag is generally stuck here in, let's see. It's in the head, and anything in the head is not displayed on the page. So you wouldn't put a meta tag anywhere in your body. Okay? The meta tags are meant for Google and spiders that are going through the web, looking at web pages. You can put keywords in there. There's all sorts of meta tags you can use for keywords, describing your page. Okay, and again, those are more for bots and stuff that are actually going through and looking at your page. It's for Google search engine. Okay, so you want to put the right meta tags in there so that you get the right search results for your web page. Okay. This class doesn't go heavily into SEO, which is called search engine optimization, or it doesn't really go into it at all. But that's what you use meta tags for. Hope that answers your question. All right, we're actually, looks like we're just about out of time. We are out of time. So any last questions?
Can you remind me how you use the debugger? Because I can't remember.
Sure. I'm going to close the debugger here, and I'm going to say right-click, inspect. Okay. Also, when you close it, it's usually like function F12 on your keyboard, and that'll pretty much, I guess, any browser pretty much do the same. F12 or right-click, inspect, and again, you can look at your sources. Oh gosh, time's up. I'm going to show you something real quick. See here in the browser called File System. What you can do is you can add a folder in there. So if you have a project in your file system, you can go to your browser here and add that folder. So you can see I've actually got it for a couple of my labs here. The cool thing about that is when I'm in sources and I make changes. So for example, okay, yeah. I make changes in the browser, it saves it to my workspace, to my Visual Studio Code. So usually when you go in the browser, you're sort of just looking at what's currently there and what's being rendered. But if you go in the sources tab, you can make changes to your source code in the browser, which sort of just makes things faster. Okay. Usually because normally what you would do is something like this. I'd look at element, I'd look at the, I'd go here and I'd look at this. Let's say it's got a style. Well, I want to change that style. I'd go back to Visual Studio, right? I would add it in my page and then redisplay it. But if I actually set up my file system, and time's up, so I'll show you more about this next time. Again, it's just really handy. I can sit here and look at my page, play with it, add things to it, and then save changes to it from the web browser debugger. So it's something I just discovered a couple of years ago. So it's I don't know when they added it, but it's actually really quite handy. All right. If you run into, see, I've been fixing some links to assignments. So if you're running ahead and for some reason you click on an assignment link and it doesn't take you to the actual lab or actual chapter in Zybooks, don't continue. Don't go to Zybooks manually. Don't ever manually navigate Zybooks.
Yeah, I'm in another class where we have Zybooks. Basically, what I believe, like 50% of the class got 0% on their reading assignment because he hasn't.
Yeah, there's quite a few people in this class, in both sections that still haven't got it yet. I sent the instructions out. We talked about it. But just like I said, you go into your Canvas assignment, click on that button to go to Zybooks. Do your work, save it, done. Bob's your uncle. I mean, you can, in the instructions I sent out, you can go to the assignments tab and there's a submit button. So if you forgot to submit it, you can actually go back to the assignment and submit it again, which is nice too. But for right now, I've just been fixing those up. Just like I say, I want you to resubmit. At first, I actually had the due dates in Canvas to be the same as the Canvas, in Zybooks to be the same as Canvas, but that Zybooks wouldn't allow you to submit. So I've actually made the due dates in Zybooks December 10th. And I'm allowing Canvas to do all the late calculations. Okay, so it'll at least allow you to submit. If you have any problems submitting or getting in assignments, please ping me or the TA so we can get it fixed.
Just going back to the debugger, so you push play button to actually check to see if the code is correct, or
You click what?
the play button?
If I'm doing,
Right there on the top, right next to the pause. Oh, it's too high.
okay, so this is for debugging JavaScript.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so lab, JavaScript, associative arrays. I mean, anyone wants to stick around, I can show you that, but we're going to go into JavaScript, and I'm going to show you how to do that later, all right?
That has nothing to do with HTML.
All right, so this is just showing me this, I don't want to get you guys confused. The page tab here just shows what's currently loaded. Lab, photo, gallery, table, index HTML, and I've got 3 JPEGs there, okay? Again, in the future, you can select your JavaScript, set breakpoints, step through it, look at the watch, look at the call stack, just like you do in any other debugger in any other language. But that's future. We'll spend time on that in the near future. All right. Thank you very much, folks. Any last minute questions online? Just go ahead and unmute and talk if you have any questions. Thanks, guys. Good luck. No questions. I'm going to hang up this team.
Professor? Nope, he's gone.
And stop recording. Here we go.